All right, once again, good evening, everybody. It is July the 2nd. We're having class tonight in lieu of having our class on July the 4th. And so this is EDLS 740, and I am your course instructor, Joe Bullis, otherwise known as Froggy, tonight. So we'll get through it. We'll get through it. So I'm going to go ahead. I hope everybody else is doing well and staying healthy and safe. And yeah, I'm sick, but it is a mild case. Thank the good Lord. So it is a mild case. So it's nothing that'll slow me down too long. I don't hope. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and we're going to pull up the agenda for tonight. And if I all of a sudden go off screen, or not off screen, but mute myself, it's because I'm getting ready to cough. So we'll try to keep that to a minimum. But we'll go ahead and get started in the agenda tonight. I'm going to wrap up the presentation on the capital expenditure plan, and maybe answer any questions that you have. I think Bridget, Walter, and Teresa are presenting tonight, and then we'll wrap it up. And if we finish a few moments early, then I'm probably just going to call it, let that be it for this evening. I hope you understand that. So I do want to draw your attention to this. This is my 30th year in education, and I found myself saying, well, when I retire, well, when I retire, when I retire. And a good friend of mine, Rebecca Maston, we started in administration together, and we were assistant principals together, and she was a principal, very successful principal at 2 or 3 elementary schools. And her last 10 years as principal, she was principal of an elementary school with 900 people. And she retired recently. And ironically enough, she had gotten COVID last year and had some other health issues, and ended up with complications beyond COVID, passed away. And at her funeral, this was shared, and it just made me stop and think. We always look for that end point. Well, when this happens, I'll be happy. But when I get here, I'll be happy. But we never know what life's going to bring us and where that end point is. So I was reminded of the fact of being enjoying the journey, not looking for the finish line, but just enjoy the journey along the way. And this is the station by Robert Hastings, and I'll let you read that at some point in time. I really highly we won't take time to do it tonight, because I want to get through the presentation and everybody have a chance not to feel rushed like they did last time. But if you get the chance, or take the chance, make the time to read that, and just know that when you get your doctorate, that is great, and that is something that we're definitely going to celebrate. But don't forget the good times you had along the way, and enjoy every second, every aggravating, frustrating moment of hammering that dissertation out. Enjoy that. Enjoy those times with your dissertation coach. So I'm going to go ahead and start part C of the presentation that I started. And if you can't hear me, I'm talking as loud as I can, but if I need to get closer to the mic, let me know, because I know I'm not projecting like I normally would. But we discussed the first parts of the capital expenditure, or your capstone project, last time we met, and we discussed parts A and B. And it's not going to take me long to go over C and D, because the most involved part of this CEP will be part A and part B. Part C will not be as I don't want to say complicated, maybe a time intensive, as part A and B for those who went through Gardner Webb's MELS program and got your master's with Gardner Webb and School Administration. The next two parts are going to be a little familiar to you because it's a lot like as you finished some of the capstone projects you had in 601, 602, and so forth. But part C of the CEP is a reflection. And that's where think of each of these, they don't have to be, but think of each of these line items here as subheadings, and you're going to reflect on the process that you went through to find out about the different things in the CEP, about the managerial aspects, about finance, about auxiliary, the process that you went through to accomplish parts A and B is the managerial presentations that you did, the other presentations that you did and are doing. How is that beneficial? What's that process? How has that process aided you and reaching to the point of looking through the eyes of a superintendent of as a district leader in some of those areas that you wouldn't normally look at. For a lot of us, we focus on curriculum instruction the majority of our career. Used to principal back in the day, back in the 60s and 70s and 80s, well, probably right up to 1995 with the ABCs of education. Principals weren't really focused on instruction. Some were. I didn't mean to, just kind of do a blanket statement there. But back in those times, if you kept your school in good standing and you kept the community involved the best you can and basically just kept it out of the ditches on each side of the road, you were a successful principal. So even to this point, uh, that all changed around after 1995. And I'm not saying the pendulum is swinging so far the other way, but we're so focused on curriculum instruction that I think a lot of us go into leadership beyond the principal level and not really having a clear understanding of some of the managerial aspects to running a district, being nutrition, being transportation, being maintenance, as we get into that area. So, has this changed you? And it may not. It may not have. The process may not have. And if it hasn't, that's fine. Indicate that as well. You already have a clear understanding and involved a lot in those aspects. And the assistant principal, you're certainly involved with transportation and buses a lot, but I want you to look at it through the eyes, of a district leader. And then I want you to reflect on the participants. Did talking to some of these people, and looking more at the strategic plan, the people that were involved in this, more at the representation of auxiliary services or finance and how it's involved in the strategic plan. Those people reflect on the conversations, the interviews, the part of that aspect of the CEP, do a reflection on those people, and did you get a clear understanding of some of the things they do? Did you get a better appreciation of some of the things that they do? And then I want you to reflect on your county's budget process, facility planning and maintenance, and how has this helped you as you prepare for your future job? Every one of you may end up being a superintendent. Every one of you may end up being an assistant superintendent or a director at the district level. I firmly believe this is a sharp group. I think every one of you will go as far as you want to go. So how has this process helped you for your future job roles? And then the marketing plan that you do, part of it is presenting your plan to a team of leadership individuals. And I kind of talked about this last week, is the chance to do that. I'm sorry, I couldn't find the mute button in time, but the chance to do that. Uh, I'm so sorry. The chance to do that may not be as you might not have that chance during the summertime. So if you were going to the last section, if you were going to share your plan, who would you share it? When would you share it? Where do you plan on sharing it? And how would you share it? And just address that. Just maybe do a brief timeline in a narrative form of how you plan on sharing the CP and what you found out, and do the who, when, where, and how. That's part C. Any questions on part C? Now I found the mute button. Now I see the mute button. I don't need it. So any questions on C? All right. Well, let's look at part D. And I did put a few notes here because I thought maybe by this time of the presentation I might be losing my voice. But the part D of the CEP is reflecting on the competencies of standards 5 and 7. So part C and D is all about reflection. C is reflecting about on what you did in parts A and B. And then part D is you taking a really good look at standards 5 and 7. Standard 5 is all about managerial leadership. Standard 7 is all about micro-political leadership. And this is the aspiring superintendent standards that you as a superintendent, and very well as a director, if your superintendent chooses to do so, you will be evaluated based on these standards 5 and 7. And you've worked through the other ones. I'm anticipating that you've worked through the others in the EDLS program, and these are the last two. So take a real good reading on standards 5. And how do you rank yourself? And this is where I'm saying this is also similar to what you did if you were in the Gardner-Webb School Administration Master's Program, is you would have to do the School of Ed dispositions and the competency analysis, where you rated yourself on the dispositions of school leadership, and you rated yourself on the 21 leadership competencies. Well, rate yourself, rank yourself, rate yourself, and there's some instruction on how to do that in the guidance document on standard 5. How do you feel like the very end of the program, and I'm not just talking about EDLS 740 this semester, but within these standards and how you've grown since you started this doctoral program, rate yourself on that competency and speak to that. How have you grown as a district leader within the context of standard 5, but also rely on some of the things that you've learned, experiences that you've had in the doctoral program. And then a lot of people may argue with me on this, but I think of all the standards, as far as leading a successful school district within a community, standard 7, micro-political leadership, is the most important. Micro-political, you will draw on your ability as a leader more within this context than anything else when you're talking about relating to the board, communicating with the board, business leaders, parents, community. Micro-political leadership is the most important standard of all the standards in regards to day-to-day operation of a superintendent. So in your own words, in part D, once you get to this part, is define micro-political leadership in your own words. And why is it so important? Why is it so important? And what makes you, why would I say that it may be the most relevant and most practical of all of the standards? It will, your ability to navigate these fog-banked waters, if you'll let me use that analogy, your ability to navigate micro-political leadership will determine your success or not as a superintendent. And I've worked with different superintendents. I think I've worked for the superintendents altogether, and I've seen some that were phenomenal in this area, and then I've seen some that weren't. The ones that were phenomenal in this area, one was a superintendent for 14 years. The other was a superintendent for 8 years. The one that comes to mind immediately that was not successful in this had his contract bought out within the second year of his tenure as superintendent. So enough said of that. So, and then just know that you got resources for the CEP in the course shell. I'm going to do a new share. Well, let me just reduce this and pull this over so I can see what I'm doing. Just remember that there's a PowerPoint presentation. I've listed it twice, but over here in this part of the course shell is the rubric that I'll use when I grade the document, is the guidance that I think I pulled that up last week, and that for you to use and helping a lot of what I've told you is in the guidance. The title page you need to use. Here's a couple of aspiring superintendent standards 5 and 7. A couple of links to those two items. And then I think, yeah, all of these are visible to you. The digital competencies, Gardner Webb put that in there. I think by default, you're going to satisfy any digital competency just in the fact of presentations. And if you want to write in the plan that you're going to have a virtual meeting to show your marketing plan, that's fine. You really don't have to do anything with digital competencies. If I feel like that you're short on satisfying those, then when I read your submission, I'll let you know, and we may do a little revision. Here's the late submission policy that Gardner Webb put in there. There are no exemplars. One of the professors said that they would load up some exemplars, and they never have. So I'm not that I'm trying to keep anything from you. This is my version. You can see when I click on it, nothing is below it. So nobody's put anything in there. And since this is the first time I've taught this version of the course, I don't have any. Now, I may very well come up to you after this semester and ask you if I could use your document as an exemplar for future 740 candidates. Any questions? All right. Sounds good. If you get into it and you have some questions, let me know. As I said, we will do some, I will have a work session on this when we meet face to face here coming up here in the near future. We'll do a CEP work session. You may even be able to knock it out or get a big part of it done that weekend. I don't want you to rely on that, but just know I do plan on sharing, because I told you this before, but I really want to go over with you on how to conduct a needs assessment, which is part A of the CEP. But don't wait on that. Go ahead and start lining up and working on it as you go. All right, so tonight we're going to, okay, yeah, let me look at the chat here. Okay, Eric, I'll address that, yeah, later on. Thank you. I'll send you an email here in a little bit. We'll get that answered for you. All right. Let's start with the presentations. We've got presenter 7, and that's Bridget. So Bridget, I'm going to do a stop share here, pull everybody back in. And Bridget, are you ready, ma'am?
Yes, I am ready.
Okay, let me give you co-host so you can share your screen. All right, I'm going to sip on coffee and listen to this excellent presentation after I mute myself again.
All right. Can everyone see my screen? All right, well, we're gonna get started. I'm not gonna be long-winded, I promise you that. Lots of good information. Really was able to learn a lot about this chapter. So I've got chapter 8 that focuses on the development of the capital improvement program. So I'm really gonna dig down into what that looks like, and then allowing us to think through the lens of current district leaders, future district leaders, if we ever are at the table and have to do this work, what the process would be like. So in previous chapters prior to chapter 8, it talked about the long range facility plan. So when we looked at the long range facility plan, you basically have a set of action plans that focus on all of the things that are happening within your school district, from the teaching to the curriculum, to the retention of staff, other improvements. And so with that long range plan, what really has happened is at a district level, we have evaluated the facilities, we have evaluated all the things that we have. And so this long range facility plan really serves as the building block and the foundation for the capital improvement plan. Sometimes you'll hear capital improvement plan, sometimes you'll hear capital improvement program. The more that I read it, I came to understand that maybe it's the capital improvement program, and within the program, you have the plan, and then we'll go and talk a little bit about the budget. So basically, for the capital improvement plan, you looked at all the data from that long range facility plan, and that's what's being used to dive deeper. So imagine it being a branch off, and this branch off, you are providing more detail to the specific needs that you've identified within your long range plan. And so it sets the I can't see because I've got my thing in the way. It is a set of proposed actions to provide housing or classroom space. They say housing, but really it's classroom space for your students of a school system. And so really your capital improvement plan is the implementation plan of the evaluation. So the long range plan, I've evaluated. The capital improvement plan, I am implementing those things that I evaluated. Okay, so delving a little bit more into the capital improvement plan. So with the time span, it can cover work over several years, and it coincides with the time span of the long range plan. So I've been doing some research. I always am interested, now that we are pursuing these doctorate degrees, I always like looking at other school board meetings just to kind of see how they run things. And so time frames can be varying, of course. So I was looking at a school district in Virginia. This was at the end of, the end of the calendar year of 2022, and they were proposing their capital improvement plan that started 2023, 2024, and it spanned for 10 years. And really they presented on all the things that they wanted to focus on within that time. So it can consist of new buildings, it can consist of additions to existing buildings, major renovations of older buildings, the purchase of sites or buildings, and major improvements to schools. And also it lists the surplus classrooms if student enrollment is declining. So remember, we talked about in the previous chapters that a lot of times when we're creating these long range facility plans, we're looking at things such as student enrollment to predict what we need to do, whether the enrollment is increasing. Of course, if the enrollment is increasing at a very rapid rate, if you have a large number of students that are coming to a certain school or a certain set of schools, you want to make sure that you have the space to accommodate them. And so within this plan, that addresses those things, but it also is a way for you to list those surplus classrooms if the overall student enrollment is declining. So with the additional details of the capital improvement plan, you list all the major capital projects within the school system. They are listed, and they are, of course, a time span is given. Typically, that's covered over 5 to 10 years. And the school system always has more capital improvement projects. I liken it to, our roles as educators. No matter how much work we do, the work is never really done. There's always something to do. And that's kind of the same process when you look at the capital improvement project. Projects can always be thought of, seen, listed. And so, but what the plan within the plan, and we'll talk more about some of the people that sit at the table when this plan is being created, they have to rank the projects to determine what needs to be completed first, what is most priority, and then from there, they dwindle it down to those things that might not be, that are still important, but might not be at the very top of the list. And from that, they're able to develop the time frame of how long it will take for those things to occur. The timing of the project is important. So when you think about the rapid growth in an area, if you know within 3 years, there will be a new warehouse or corporation that's going to be coming to an area and families are going to be concentrated in that area, and your schools currently are overcrowded, that is something that you're going to want to think about in your capital improvement plan, maybe adding a new school, adding a wing to a school, thinking about those things for being forward thinking. So this development of this plan is determined by the facilities department and the superintendent and your fiscal officers. All of these people are the key stakeholders. They come to the table and they discuss what needs to be done. Of course, discuss that with the superintendent, and of course, you want your finance people there to give perspective of the financial costs. So I don't know if y'all are gonna be able to see this on my screen. Can y'all still see my screen? Yes, okay. All right, so as district leaders, some of us current, some of us in the future, we might have to sit at the table. As future superintendents, we may have to sit at the table and consider what it means when we have a list of items or projects that need to be done over a span of time. And so working with a team, we will have to determine and rank those items. So these are very generic. Now, a lot of the plans that I looked at, they had multiple pages of items that needed to be completed. So this is a small frame of what we would potentially see one day. What we're going to do is I want us to have a little bit of experience of how to rank these things, looking at the items that we have here. So there's different scenarios on each of the sticky notes. And what I would like for us to do is just have a discussion and put these in a ranking order. And you all just talk about where it should go, why you think it should go there, and just kind of have some conversation. And this will begin to get our feet wet of some of the experiences that we have if and when we ever do this work. So I don't want to drive. So if you don't mind, Whitney, I'm going to call on you. If you don't mind driving, just to lead the conversation and move the stickies around, let me put in the chat the actual Jamboard. So if you need access to it, you can get it there. Mhm. All right, can y'all still see my screen? All righty.
All right, so I am trying to log into the Jamboard. So if you all give me a moment, as I'm logging into the Jamboard, if everyone could just read over this notes so that then we can begin rearranging them accordingly.
If you're not able to get in, it's okay. We can pass it to somebody else.
I got it.
Okay.
Oh, okay, so what would be the first sticky that we move? Would it be flooring and painting upgrades across 10 of the 15 schools in the district? Adding an extra wing to the Treetop Elementary School to accommodate the 100 new students expected to move to the new area by 2027 due to new housing developments. Stony Point High School and Rocky Creek High School turf field replacement and track repairs. Restroom renovations at Green Wave Middle School to include plumbing repairs from leaking sinks and toilet replacements, and in 2 of the 3 group restrooms on site. Major HVAC repairs at Walton High School. Electrical repairs at Western Middle School. Remove 4 trees that are towering over the roof of the school, or roof repairs at Ivy Elementary.
I would definitely say the last 3 would be probably the last one being adding the extra wing, the one right before that being the turf field replacements, and then the third from last being flooring and painting upgrades.
Correct.
So would these be last?
Y'all
Those-
can slide them if you need to, too.
Okay, and bear with me. I lost my glasses, so things are a bit blurry, but I got y'all. Okay, so y'all said the turf would be one of the last ones, along with which ones again? I'm sorry. Eric,
got-
are you in there? God bless you. Let the Lord use your hands.
I would think that those electrical and repairs and the HVAC are a priority.
Yes,
And
I
I
agree.
would
Also, the
think so as well.
restrooms. I think the restrooms are a priority too, because you can't have
Correct.
school without working
Right.
restrooms.
So let's do the restrooms first
Okay.
and then HVAC,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Eric, I thought God was using your hands.
I'm sorry. Let me go back because I came back to Zoom. Sorry. So HVAC first.
Yes. No,
then
restrooms first.
restrooms first.
Restrooms first. And then the HVAC, then the electrical repairs.
But the restroom one says renovations. Um,
Oh, so let's move that. We're not.
Yeah.
Oh,
And the electrical could be a fire hazard. I would do electrical
Yeah.
first.
I agree.
Just going to say, because we've experienced this not too long ago, if you have leaking sewage coming into the floor and the hallway of a school, that's going to be one of your number one priorities. And I agree with electrical. Repairs are always need to be considered first. Anything that jeopardizes the safety of the students and staff needs to be your number one priority. Depending on the time of year, track repairs may move up on the a priority list if there's some repairs needed to be done that could cause an injury. So just my
Same with the roof and the
The roof.
trees.
Mhm.
With those trees, you need to make sure you get those trees out, and then I think go to the roof to make sure that there's not anything leaking.
so Bridget, is it safe to say that these 5 need to happen kind of simultaneously?
That I think you bring up a good point. And that's the other thing too, right? Because also in the future, y'all did really good with that. But we kind of see what can happen when you come to the table, because these are real things that happen. When you think about the future, a school having to be built or an addition, that work may begin in the first year, but it might not be complete in the first year. You might be able to find the site or, get the architect in the first year. So you're right. A lot of these things are going to be happening simultaneously, but the goal and the purpose is to make sure that when you're ranking them in a way of, like you all mentioned, one of the biggest things is safety. If at any point it impacts student safety or staff safety, anybody that's in the facilities, those are the ones that are going to take precedence. But some of these things, yes, will happen simultaneously. Good job. That was great. All right. Let's go back to my screen if I can get there. Okay, can y'all see my screen? All right, very good. All right, so let's go and talk a little bit about the capital improvement program approval process. So you create this capital improvement plan, and just like anything else, you create the plan, but it's got to be approved. And so there is an approval process that takes place that is not just the superintendent signing off on a plan saying, yeah, this looks good, go ahead and get it done. It is very strategic. And so I'm going to talk to you through the levels. So you have the internal process of approval, which will be your stakeholders within the school system and within the school district. But then you also have external approval as well. So at level 1, you've got your central administrative staff. That will be your superintendent, your facilities department, your fiscal leaders that have worked to create this plan and compiled all the documents. You may pull in some other people that have worked to compile this plan. They are going to create the plan plan and then say, okay, we are good to move on for it to go to the next level of approval. So after that, the administrative cabinet, in some districts, you may call it your administrative council, but that senior leadership, that cabinet of the superintendent, they are going to review the plan and they may suggest changes. They may suggest changes in the priority. So just how we went through and ranked those items, they may say, hey, I think this is a good point, but let's switch this one first because this is more of a priority. So they approve, they suggest changes. After they suggest changes, then it is presented to the school board and for their formal approval. So the school board looks and reviews the information presented to them. They approve. And then after they approve, in most states, there is a law that says once a SIP is approved, a public hearing has to take place somewhere between 10 days of its approval of the school board. So your public hearing is where you're going to gain insight from your citizens of the things that are going to be done. Now, at least one public hearing may take place, but depending on the size of the district, depending on how massive the projects are, you may have to have several public hearings before you get a general consensus of the citizens within the community. And then after that takes place, it goes back to the school board, and the school board approves it, approves the program by the resolutions, meaning all the amendments and all the suggestions that have been made along the way. That's when the board will do the final approval of that. So you have the internal and the external process. Now let's talk about the budget. So just like you have to have an approval process for the plan itself, you have to also have an approval process of the budget. Now, what we could have done with that activity that we did, we could have gone through and after we identified the ranking order, we also could have put timestamps on these things. How long do we think this is going to take? We could have discussed each one and say, okay, these things have to be done. We could have put timestamps on that to see how long it'll take. So once we do that, okay, or if we decided to do that, the first year of your plan, all those things that we say we're going to do in year one, that is considered the first year of the capital improvement budget. So when you all talked about doing the electrical repairs, doing the restroom repairs, all of those things, because they take precedence, more likely they're going to happen in year one. And so that's when we break down those pieces to say, this is how much, these are all the things that need to be done. This is how much it's going to cost. And everything that we want done from proposing this renovation for this new wing, getting a contractor, all those things are going to be put within the first year of that improvement plan. And so because of that, that is also the first year of the budget. So without the budget, the school system staff has no authority to spend funds for a project, no matter how worthy it is. So let's say that one of the schools had a roof repair that needed to be done, and it stormed, and now it's a hole in the roof. And I can't just say, as a superintendent, go ahead and call this company to come out here to repair the roof. If it's not been approved, then the whole work of that cannot be done. And so that's important too. Everything has to be approved. And at the end of the first year, all the projects in the capital improvement budget and the plan, they have to be completed. So whatever we say is in year one of that plan, at the end of year one, all of those things have to be completed. And then the next set of projects that we deem for year two is what goes up to be approved again for the next phase of the budget, okay? And it follows the same approval process, those levels, just like it did for the capital improvement plan. Now, the end of the chapter talked about the maintenance schedule, and it just talked about the importance of the principal and central office staff to evaluate their school buildings, to identify simple repairs or small repairs. Most school systems have a program for preventative maintenance, meaning they know those things that may need to be replaced over time. Been harping on roofs, but roofs have they have a life, right? And so after a certain amount of years, that roof will need to be repaired. And so those in the facilities department, they're going to keep a running list of some of those bigger things or some of those things that might need periodic repair so that they can keep track of that. Also, I know in our school system, we have, when there are minor repairs or larger repairs, we have a system called School Dude, and we just enter through a work order system. We enter that information in, and that also provides everyone in our maintenance and our facilities departments a running list of all the repairs, and they're able to prioritize those as well. And so, and even when we enter it, we can kind of prioritize how important it is. And so that is also a way that locally we've been able to keep up with the maintenance schedule and keeping up with the maintenance that needs to be done. So for the reflection, one of the biggest things, just as I was reading the chapter, is the big picture has gotten bigger. And I kind of relate this as I've moved in my journey as an administrator, as an assistant principal. You're kind of in the moment and you're focusing on things in the moment. And then you become a principal and you have to look at things at a bigger picture. And you have to consider things and think way out in the future. And then as a superintendent or a district leader, to do this work, you've got to think beyond just what's happening in the moment. You've got to consider trends. You've got to consider community. You've got to consider when you're doing budgeting and when those fiscal managers are coming to the table, considering inflation. If something that we want to start in 2024, are the items going to be priced the same in 2027? How, it really just made me think about the importance of considering and being well versed in what is happening in the community and what is happening around, because all of those things impact the facility development and the improvement that we need to make within the school system. And that is it.
Anyone have any questions or comments for Bridget? Well, I have a few, and then you can chime in if you wish to. Bridget, it was a great presentation, and it goes back to something that I learned long time ago with things like this at the district level: attention to communication and attention to detail. That just kind of heard that in my mind as I was listening to that. You did a great job of distinguishing between your capital improvement plan and program, the distinguishment between a program and a plan. I like that. Great idea. If you're not doing it already, and everybody is, because I think I've seen evidence of it from everybody. If you're not looking at seeing what other districts are doing and what other Board of Educations are doing and deciding on, you're doing yourself a disservice, especially if you're a district leader. It's always good to keep abreast of what's happening in the region and the districts around you, because if it's a storm in one district, it may become a storm in your district, and you need to be prepared for it. And I'm sure you all can think of examples of that as well. I like the way you brought the content out of the chapter and brought it into practical and relevant terms. Great activity. Perfect example of what's going to take a priority, but what have we got money for and what's in our plan? If we've got this approved, then we need to do it. But then what if happens? What if trees fall on two roofs at two separate elementary schools and knock big old holes in it, but we only got the budget for one? Well, sometimes two Band-Aids may need to be applied rather than one fix. So it's always, and that's I hope you can see with aspects of this, especially when it comes to schools and communities where people live and board members live. I'm going to take you back to the micro political leadership standard. A lot of that is relevant for that too. Great job. All right, Walter, let's see, sir. Let's get you lined up. Excuse me. All right, you can take it away whenever you are ready. And I hope you had a great trip. Welcome back to the United States.
Thank you. Thank you. I had a wonderful trip. It was much needed, so thank you. Can everyone see my screen? Okay. All right. All right. So tonight I'm doing my book presentation on chapter 9. Chapter 9 was pretty short, but it had a lot of meat to it, a lot of details. So I'm going to try to point out those details that the author mentioned in this particular chapter. Before I get started, though, I do want to say at the end, the activity that I'm going to do is going to require you to have a second device. So if you're on your laptop viewing this, if you could have your cell phone nearby, vice versa, if you're looking at your cell phone, if you could grab your iPad or your laptop, I would greatly appreciate that. And I just want to let you know ahead of time so we can move expeditiously. All right, so chapter 9 talked a lot about developing educational specifications. And I'm going to define what that means. But the author did a great prelude or intro into some other things before he actually defined what the topic was. But the buzzword for this chapter is educational specifications. And so he starts the chapter off by saying that educators must make difficult decisions in planning a school facility. So anytime a new facility is being built, there are some difficult decisions that have to be made. You have to define the type of program that will be carried on in the new building. So for example, if you're building a new elementary school, it's going to look different than if you were building a high school or a career center. And even within that, if some of those classrooms are going to be like for a dance class or for a strings room, those are things that you have to think about when preparing for a new school facility. You got to think about the amount of space that's needed, the relationship among those spaces, furniture and equipment that may be needed, and various services and utilities that are needed. And as I mentioned earlier, like if you're building a career center, depending on what kind of classes you're going to have, that's going to determine the size and what kinds of rooms that you're going to have in the new facility. All right, continuing with that. The completion of doing an educational specification, it requires a person that is well-versed in educational programs and methodology. All right, so districts have to be strategic in who is selected to carry out the educational specification. And this individual must also be knowledgeable of state requirements for space. So what is an educational specification? It describes to the architects the types and the kinds of activities that will take place in the proposed building. So again, it's a description to the architects of the types and kinds of activities that are going to take place in a proposed building. The author says that it should be clear, concise, and exact in what is requested in the building. Many times, school districts and systems, the author says, they do not devote sufficient time and energy and funds to complete a good job in completing the educational specification. And then he listed some possible reasons for that. And some, or one could be lack of leadership, depending on who the person responsible for that particular item. And we'll talk later because it's going to look different in every district. Some districts, it may be the superintendent. Some district, it may be the director of facilities or operations, or it may be an outside person that is outsourced. So it varies, and it's going to look different from district to district, depending on the size. Sometimes educators feel that it should be the responsibility of the architect to do the educational specification. And he said that's why sometimes schools do not, or school districts do not devote sufficient time and energy and funds. Educators hold the mistaken belief that the school system does not have the capacity or the staff to do the task. And in some instances, they can't afford to purchase outside assistance. And then some educators feel that they don't know how to guide the process of developing a set of educational specifications. So these are all reasons that he listed, possible reasons of why school systems do not devote the time and energy that's needed to complete an efficient educational specification. He listed questions relating to the new facilities that need to be answered. And so these are some of the things that he listed. There were several other questions, but I thought that these were very important questions. How many students will the facility serve? What subjects are going to be taught? As I mentioned earlier, if you're going to have several science labs, then that's going to be, the architect needs to know that. That's going to affect the design of the building. What methods of teaching will be used? What special areas are needed and for whom? Will the community utilize the building? How many students will eat lunch and or breakfast? What are the age groupings, backgrounds, and needs of the students who will occupy the building? So the author listed these as important questions when developing an educational specification. All right, so quickly, these are just 2 questions to ponder. So anyone can unmute at any time. So the first question is, if a kindergarten teacher wants a group of students to sit on the floor to engage in a reading activity, then what type of flooring would be needed in this particular facility? Anybody can unmute.
Carpet,
Say that again.
carpet.
Okay, very good. Yeah, carpet.
Yeah.
So if the students will engage in an activity such as watercolor painting or woodworking, what kind of floor covering would be needed?
Tile.
Why do you say tile?
Because of the cleanliness. If you're gonna, even though it's watercolor on the towel, it's gonna be easy to clean or maintain the
Exactly.
floor. Mhm.
And that's what the author said. He said that would that type of flooring would be needed, something that's easy to clean because of the painting and different things that are going to take place. All right, so the development process. So the preparation of the educational specifications is the responsibility of the school district, the school system. So that's someone on staff or an outside consultant that consults with current staff members. And as I mentioned earlier, the author said that if it's a medium-sized school system, then usually the superintendent will be responsible for the educational specification. But in a larger school system, usually it'll be the assistant superintendent for facilities, which makes sense. School systems must assign resources to complete the task. So they must provide office space, travel funds, communication services, etc. The person writing the educational specification must meet with several to gain input. So he really harped on the fact that this is not a solo project. The person that's in charge of this is going to have to come to the table with numerous people, and not just in district or staff members, but parents, community members. There are a lot of people that take a part into this. And so he said that the person must meet with parents and even teachers. And this could be in group sessions as well to help develop the educational specification. Now, approval. All right, so the final approval should be by the school board. So the educational specification will be used as the final arbiter for what will be in the building. And I thought that this was he used this statement to kind of drive what he was saying about how the school is important that the school boards approve this. He said that school board approval of the set of educational specifications limits the size of the building to what can be accomplished through the budget. And we all know how that's important, making sure we have the funds to do what we need to do. All right. So I asked all of you to have a second device. So if everyone could quickly use that second device and go to kahoot.it real quickly. Once you go to kahoot.it, there's a pin that you need to type in, 5373082. So I'll give everybody a quick 15, 20 seconds to go to kahoot.it. And if you would type in the pin 5373082. And once you type in your pin, it's going to ask you to create a name. So just whatever name you want to use.
Can you please put the code back up? I'm sorry, I was moving a little slow.
No problem. I'll give it to you. It's 537-3082. And I want to make sure, can everyone still see my screen where it has the code and the Kahoot and everyone's name on the board? Does everybody see what I see?
No, I see.
We
Yes,
see
Eric.
the slide.
Yeah.
Yeah, we see your presentation screen.
Okay, hold on just
See
a
your
second.
presentation.
You see the presentation? Okay, hold on just a second. Give me 1 second, because I see something different on my screen. So I want to let's see.
And I need to
Walter,
pin
you
one more
might have to
time.
share that. You might have to share that page. Like if you just shared your page that your presentation was on, you might have to stop sharing and reshare.
Okay.
And what was the pin again, please? Sorry. Anybody, can they tell me the pin?
It was 537.
3082. Yeah, now can you all see it now? Okay.
Yes, sir. We're
Yes.
good to go.
All right. All right. So you're going to have some questions and you have to answer on your second device. So it's a true or false question. Educators must make difficult decisions in planning a school facility. True or false? Guess who's in the lead?
Of course, Eric.
Next question.
What do you mean, of course, Eric? There's somebody else in front of me now.
Eric is.
Who is it, Eric? Who's in front of you?
It's me now, but
Whatever.
Question 3. Eric is still in the lead.
Yeah.
All right, question 4.
not anymore. I pressed the wrong button.
All right, Anera.
Oh, there.
All right, question 5. Anera's still in the lead. Question 6. We have 2 questions left. So this is question 6. Eric regained the lead, so we have 1 more question. So y'all get ready. Here we go. never came in number 3. Big Daddy came in.
Who is Big
Number
Daddy? That's gotta be Gary.
That would be me.
Oh, Big Daddy's Dr. Bulls. I love it.
Walter, I'll text you my address for my prize.
I got you. I'll get with you about your prize. All right. All right, I'm gonna stop sharing so I can go back for just 1 second. All right. Oh, sorry. So reflections and managerial leadership. So while learning about educational specifications in this chapter, I've come to deeply appreciate the power of detailed planning and effective collaboration. And Dr. Bullis mentioned the importance of planning earlier, along with Bridget, being detail oriented as you are constructing educational specifications. And the importance of effectively collaborating with others and making sure that everyone is included. Understanding needs. Detailed educational specifications require a thorough understanding of the types and kinds of activities that will take place in whatever building is proposed to be built. This process has taught me the importance of actively listening to the needs and visions of all stakeholders to ensure the final design supports educational goals. And that's my presentation. So hopefully you all enjoy it. And Eric, I will make sure you get a prize.
Certainly enjoyed that. Good job, Walter. Anybody got any comments other than what you want to put in the chat? I do like the way you brought out the relationship of space, and you did, and I was really glad you mentioned CTE, because each CTE course has its own equipment guide along with its course specifications. It has an equipment guide, and in that equipment guide, if it's a culinary class, it'll go down to how many cookie sheets you have to have in that room, how many prep stations has to be in that room. Some are suggested, and then some are required. So I really like that you brought that relationship of space, and I don't think every curriculum has those equipment guides, but every CTE course has that. So that's very good. And it just made kind of drew attention back to me of how important your auxiliary directors are. Your nutrition guy needs to know his stuff. Your maintenance guy needs to know his stuff, and the HVAC guy, all those people, so they can effectively communicate with the architect. You know, when you're looking at a building, how many EC programs are going to be there? Are they going to be self-contained programs, EC building? How many buses are going to roll onto campus? What's the car line? I've seen school systems put up some new schools and not even think about car line, and it caused a big problem for that community. So great job. Love the activity, and I appreciate you letting me play too. I love Kahoot. I love Kahoot. So good deal. All right, Teresa, are you ready to start, ma'am?
I am, and you're going to get 2 because that's also my activity.
Awesome. That's great. All right, I'm going to be quiet, Teresa, and let you go.
Okay, let me get to Can you all see my screen?
No, ma'am, not yet.
Not yet. Hang on, let me go back to our class, and I'm going to, there we go. And hang on, bear with me because I am going to my settings and my screen, and I cannot Okay, somebody. How am I supposed to get my screen, share my screen?
Do you have an extended screen, Teresa?
I do not. I took that off.
Oh, okay.
Is it in like a drive
Okay,
or
I see it.
something? Okay.
I've got it. Share. Okay. Can you all
Good
see
to
it now?
go. Yes, ma'am. Great job.
All right. So I'm going to start from the beginning. And this was a very lengthy chapter. One of the things that I noticed as I went through the chapter, a lot of the information kind of came back to the same information, but it gave a little more details in each one. So this is chapter 7 or chapter 10, excuse me. It covers the site selection and acquisition. One of the big things with this chapter and was the pros and cons of securing a site. This is probably, the author stated that this was one of the major things or issues that a school district comes up with when they're looking at building a new structure or building something new for the district. And there were lots of things or lots of reasons why this is one of the big problems that, or the most difficult task when a school system is planning a new school. One of the things, some of the pros were existing structures. They can often use, or oftentimes they will take an existing structure that is already there, and they're able to tailor it, and they're able to use it to meet the needs for what they are trying to do with the new building. Geographic location is also one of the pros. And it was funny because this was listed as a pro and a con, because the geographic location, depending on where it is, could be positive because it's in the right place, but it could also be an issue because it could cause transportation and some other issues that I'll talk about a little bit further down in the chapter. One of the pros is with securing a site, and you can see in the little picture right here, that's a site that doesn't have anything on it. And oftentimes they don't have to, they're looking for sites that they don't have to do a whole lot of work to. There's another part of this, or I'll go more in detail with this towards the end of the chapter because that's in another section as well. Sharing resources is also one of the pros for securing a site, because some of the resources, if it's tailored or next to another government office or state building, then oftentimes some of the tax money and some of the costs can be a shared resource because the school district can tap in to the state or other funds for creating a new site. The land cost was a con. Oftentimes school districts struggle because the land prices, and as you all know, with the housing market right now, it is very expensive to purchase or secure land because it's very expensive. It's a very high commodity right now because lots of people are building houses. They're not building them fast enough. So trying to secure enough land to build a brand new school, especially depending on, as my classmate said a few minutes ago, or in previous chapters, it's all about what you need. And if it's a high school, or for Chester, they are or have the plans in place right now to build a new career center. Now with the bond referendum, there are a lot of things that are in with that, and that cost is going to drive up because of the things that they're going to have to put on that land. Renovation costs. One of the other things, in talking to our maintenance director, they have did two plans, one for a brand new school and one for if the bond referendum does not pass. The renovation costs are going to cost the same, or not the same, but I believe he said like in the millions to renovate a school that's falling apart. So, and then that covers this last con, the political things right now for Chester County. It is a big political thing on whether or not they're going, where they're going to build, what they're going to put there, why it should the bond referendum pass. Is this a good thing? So those are some of the things that the author lists as pros and cons to securing a site. Land banking was one of the ways to use to secure land. Now, I thought this was very interesting, but one of the things that the author talked about with land banking, and land banking is when they purchase land for future purchases or for future building. When they do the studies to look at the population, to look at the companies that are coming to the school district, looking at some potential houses and growth. Land banking is something that a district does to go ahead and purchase land, and they'll purchase huge lots of land in different locations where the study predicts that growth is going to occur. Some of the pros for land banking are that the school district uses or secures the land for future sites. It's not a big deal. So it doesn't matter, or it's not as big of a deal if the school district has already purchased land and 10 years from now, the price double or triples because they've already purchased it a whole lot cheaper. They get it at that decreased price. It also eliminates overcrowding because the school has already prepared in advance. They are building it. Nobody's being displaced while they're waiting on this new school to be built, and they're not losing any money because the land banking allows adequate space and growth for it. I thought it was interesting because one of the pros that was listed was the Adequate Space Needs Act. So one of the things that I did was look up South Carolina to see if that was one, because it did reference that some states no longer use or don't use that act to have ordinances on the schools or the sizes for the school. And it was interesting when I looked it up. South Carolina recently removed that acreage and in 2003 to no longer require a minimum amount for K through 12 schools. I thought that was interesting. So school districts don't have to look for huge amounts of land. It's based on the school district and the district policies and board policies. Cons are that long range, that it requires long range planning, that the land is uninhibited, nobody's on it, and that local government will regulate and give them, they're able to purchase it and let it be there and maintain it until it's used or until they're ready to use it. Site acquisition is when, and there are 4 types of site acquisition. It's when land can be purchased. This is how the district purchases land in order to build a new building or a new school. The first type is they can buy it straight out from an owner, a straight purchase. The second way is a gift. Of course, that's probably one of the favorite choices or types because the district, it doesn't cost the district any money. The author did caution, though, that sometimes boards and school districts have to be careful about receiving gifts because a lot of times those gifts come with some stipulations. So it did caution that when receiving or accepting gifts from a donor, that the school district makes sure that they're not on the hook for promising something that they're not able to uphold or able to do. Eminent domain. I did not realize until reading this chapter that the school district can take land or have a site taken under eminent domain. And eminent domain is when a agency or a company, usually the government, or mostly the most well-known eminent domain things are usually for highways or roads. And that's when property can be taken, and if they want to put a house on, say, an acre or so of my land and it's going to encroach on my property, then they will pay me, even if I don't agree with it. They will pay me fair market value and use that land anyway because it backs up and it's going to be a forced purchase. Receipt of surplus government property. There are buildings that are not used that are in good standing, or buildings that have minimal requirements for renovations that can be given to the school because they're government properties. There are usually stipulations and different things that go along with that. One of the things talked about the school not ever being able to use that property to sell it to someone else. It would go back to the government. But as long as it was being used for a school and not for profit, then it could be used. So all of those types had different stipulations. I think the cleanest, according to the author, the cleanest acquisition for a site is probably purchasing it straight from the owner. Site standards. This was very interesting, and it was a lot of information. Site standards are often determined based on the acreage. And a few minutes ago, I told you about South Carolina eliminating the acreage standards for K-12 schools. There is no minimum right now for South Carolina. It encourages, it had a note down at the bottom from South Carolina. Again, this was 2003 that this was passed, that they encourage districts to work with the planners to look to make sure that the site that they were securing and the information that they were using was enough to cover what they wanted to put on that property. Site selection process. This was a very lengthy process. It included a team of folks, and you can have anywhere from folks that are appointed by the superintendent. The maintenance supervisor is often one of the driving forces behind this, but they also work with transportation. And it did not list a board member. And when I get on through, you'll find out why the board member isn't included in this. But one of the things that I thought was interesting is they oftentimes will use people from the community members. I thought about our SIC meetings, and our district has people from each attendance zone who goes and talks and serves on committees because they want to hear about the different things and the different projections and the different things that may impact the buildings or some of the projects that are going around. So looking at the site process starts with the projection of the population. They look at the transportation systems. They also look at the configuration of the county, town, or township or city. And during the consensus, they also, before they decide, there's a consensus meeting that they sit in, and they all have to collaborate and talk about what's best for the selection site. And there's a rubric that also goes along with that. With the criteria for this is looking at the proximity for the student population, looking at how many students can fit in a school. One of the things that I thought was interesting, looking at the site, I think probably about 2 or 3 years ago when I was at Louisville Elementary, when we were looking at population and how many students could the school actually hold, we found the criteria that was used to build the school. And at that time, when the school was initially built, it was built to accommodate up to 700 students. And the interesting part about that is the student population, even though you have 700 students, there are classrooms that's with the minimum of 20 kids in each classroom. But, when you have self-contained classrooms and you only have 10 children in one classroom, you only have 6 in another classroom, you've got your resource classes, and you've got all of your different things. So you got to make sure that you're looking at the adequate sizes for those schools and those classrooms to accommodate those students as well. Looking at the accessibility to the site. one of the things, again, and I go back to Louisville because that's where I was the past 10 years. One of the things when they built the school, I don't think they thought through the traffic pattern, because into those of you who've been to Louisville Elementary or high school, there's one way in to both schools and one way out for both schools. So the high school and the elementary school cannot receive or dismiss students at the same time because the traffic would be terrible. The proximity to industries. One of the things the author talked about was when you're looking at building a school or a school site, the criteria should include making sure you're not too close to power plants or chemical plants or plants that have gases or different things that could be harmful to the students, making sure that the soil and drainage system. And I thought that was interesting because, you know, if you've ever built a house before, your house has to pass a test. The school is the same way. It has to pass a test to make sure that the soil is suitable for the drainage system. Otherwise, I don't know if any of you've ever been in a school where you've had, I think a few minutes ago, someone talked about having sewage back up into the school. That happens when the criteria is not used and they're not looking at the drainage system and the suitable soil, the cost and land development. What is it going to cost? You can, if somebody donates 50 acres of land, you've got to make sure that that land is suitable to build a school on. The site evaluation team is who takes all of the information that I just shared with you all and put it together. They use that information to create a profile that will then allow them to rank, to use a ranking scale and rank each site that they've looked at using all of the criteria that I just talked about in the previous chapter. It also is going to go through and look at, and after they rank all of these, then they would put it before the board so that the board can vote on which site they're going to use. It was interesting because even though the board members are not typically members of the selection team, and this is why, the reason why is because they're the ones who make the final decision on the recommendation for which site they're going to use. And there was an interesting example of this on page 140 in our textbook. There was a large school district that went through, and it was interesting. The funny thing is the text referred to some of the differences in a large school district and a smaller school district. But that was a great example of the characteristics, the disadvantages, and the advantages that a school district in Washington City used, or it was actually the complete evaluation system that they used after they determined which school site they were going to use. Site selection resources. When looking for a site selection, the author lists these 4 things as very important things to have when you're looking at where you're going to put schools. One of the interesting things is when I got to the geographic information system, I had to go back and I said, okay, I know what these other things are, but the geographic information system is a electronic device or system that you can put in a geographic location in, and it gives you a lot of very interesting facts and information, the proximity of the highways, the proximity of how many houses you have in an area. It's almost like an AI for giving you maps. The author talked about how most of these things can be found in your county offices or state offices, where you can find information to determine your what you need or for your site resources. A site title. You have lots of different things that need to go on before you can get it after. So after you have determined where you're going to, where your site is going to be, a school district has to make sure that they have a simple the site has a simple title. That means that it does not have a lien against it. Nobody's going to, that they can sell it free and clear. After that fee is paid for the simple title, the board then will approve the title for the purchase. It then goes to the lawyer who negotiates a price with the seller. After that, a new simple fee title is listed or is drawn up in the name of the school district. So, but nothing can be done before the school district, the architects and the contractors will not touch land. They won't break ground without having or seeing a simple fee title that's listed with the school district's name on it. Site use and development is where you look, that big plot of land. This is when the architects and my classmates a few minutes ago talked a whole lot about some of the preparation that goes into the master site plan. That is all of the different things. If you're going to build a high school, is the high school going to have a new football stadium that goes there? Will it have a soccer field? Will it have a, is there a career center that's going to be close or in proximity of that school? What are some of the important things? How many, if they have self-contained classrooms, how many self-contained classrooms? How many science labs are they going to need? The class, all of the specifications go into this master site plan. The plan is very specific for, or provides very specific details about everything that's on there. And again, this is another, after they break ground, an architect is not able to design without that master site plan with the specifications. Again, this all has to be approved by the board, and then it goes to the architectural design team and they will plan the site out, and that goes back to the board for approval as well. Joint use sites are things that are used. There are a lot of schools that build sites or share sites with a museum, a recreation center, or libraries. Joint use sites usually are sites that don't have to require minimum or cleaning and clearing land. It's already usually a site that's prepared already for a school. One of the things that the author talked about is oftentimes schools or recreation departments or recreation centers and libraries will build in anticipation for a school in their plan. Now, I'm going to stop sharing for a second. And if you all will get your devices for a minute. Can you all still see? You can't see the screen yet? Okay. I'm going to put the Kahoot up. And this one, the number is 950177. I think I put it in the chat. Here, let me do that. I don't think it's not there.
Oh, it's not in the chat, Teresa. There it is.
And give me a second to figure out which. Actually, it changed the pin. It's 9718673. 9718673. 8673. Are you all able to see the Kahoot?
We're still on the where we see the candidate screen. Can't see the Kahoot yet.
Okay, I got you.
Teresa, did you stop sharing and then you shared it again?
I'm going to do it again because I did.
Okay.
I Okay. Everybody ready?
We see the login screen, but not the game screen.
Oh dear. Let me see. I think
I think you click on host live.
Yeah, maybe just click on it. Yeah.
I clicked the wrong one.
There we go.
Awesome. Everybody got that right. All right. Big Daddy's in the front. So let's see who's taking the lead. Catherine. I'm tired too is in the lead. Everyone got this one correct. Okay. Last one. Thank you all.
Oh, who won? We missed it.
Did you all get the last one?
We didn't see who was it. Who
Who
won?
won?
It was, oh, hang on. Oops. Sorry.
It's okay.
Oh boy. I think it was Catherine who won, but I'll have to go back and look. I'm sorry. I clicked off in my eagerness to end because I know class is ending. One of the big takeaways for this is when we sat down and talked to our facilities management manager or our maintenance director, a lot of the things that he mentioned to us were things that were very relevant to this chapter. It brought it back around full circle. There are a lot of things that go into planning a school and building a school and looking at and renovations and things like that. So a lot, this is one of those resources that I will make sure I keep and maintain in the event that I'm ever faced with going to or going through any of these steps, because if you leave anything out, something is not going to, you'll pay for it. Those steps are all there for a reason. Thank you.
Presentation, Teresa. Thank you so much. And you are so right. And very few superintendents get to experience that, something of building a new facility. Not as prevalent as it used to be. And you explained that the kind of the very beginning with land cost and ADMs decreasing. It's very rare anymore that somebody can go through that process. Question comes to mind. Which comes first, the chicken or the egg? Do you come up with a school plan and then find a site that'll accommodate that plan, or do you find a site and then you draw up a school to accommodate that site? So it's good there. I did like the part where you said it's not just about school and school people coming to the table, but you need to get in touch with your community agencies. What's the DOT got planned for the future? What does the Economic Development Council, what are they seeing for the future? Your city and local government, what are their plans for the next 10, 15 years? And are you picking a site that's going to be conducive to all that? And I tell you what, there is nothing more that a board member loves than getting their picture taken with a hard hat on, holding a golden shovel and digging some dirt out of the ground. So once again, I draw back to the standard of micro-political leadership. Guys, it's been an awesome class. As always, you've been very accommodating, and I appreciate that. And it looks like you might have banked some time and a half for getting out a little early on our weekend again. I don't know if this is a strategy that you're doing. So let's not take advantage of my good heartedness. I'm just kidding. Okay, last thing, everybody stay safe, your family and yourselves. I hope and pray that you guys all stay safe and healthy. And I am going to just, the very last thing, go back to our agenda before we close. And now let me pull up what I need to pull up. And I am anticipating that you're looking at the agenda. Is that correct? Okay, great. So optimistic closure. One word whip around. In the chat box, I want you to use one word. Think of one word that describes how you feel about your day today and enter that into the chat box. Oh, good words. Good words. Very good. Loving those words. Suzanne, I'm right there with you. But that's because you can have one of those days someday. Long, awesome, productive, tired, grateful, thankful, productive, informative. Excellent, excellent, successful. Yes, I agree. You're a great group and I love being with you. So you guys take care of yourselves and we'll see you next time. I'll send out some reminders. God bless you guys. Bye-bye.